This week, we find out all there is to know about ideaed Xbox darling Cuphead. We spend some quality time with the cut and fold and paste PS4 experience of Tearaway Unfolded, and Jonny Robot geeks out just a little bit about the unholy fusion that is Total War Warhammer. This is Player Attack. Hi, I'm Jessica Citizen, and this week there is some quietly worrying news from Bethesda. We've been excited for Battlecry since we saw it revealed before E3 last year, and again when we got our hands on it at PAX Australia, and again when we played it at home as part of the closed beta test, but now it looks like the game might not get any further than that. The developers have spoken out and explained that they have concerns about whether Battlecry is meeting objectives. Battlecry Studios explains that it is evaluating what improvements need to be made to the game so it can meet Bethesda's quality standards. But we've been around long enough to know that statements like that often mean that the game has actually been scrapped, or it's in line for a complete overhaul to the point where it won't resemble the thing we've been playing. Either way, it is a bit sad. Battlecry was shaping up to look pretty great, even if it was treading some familiar territory. Heading to somewhat less familiar territory is a brand new Far Cry. Far Cry Primal goes back to the Stone Age, meaning that you'll be up against woolly mammoths and saber-toothed tigers when the game launches early next year. You play as Takar, a seasoned hunter and the last surviving member of his hunting group, as you try to survive in the savage land of Oros. Challenges come from your fellow humans, as well as the aforementioned wildlife, and Mother Nature might play a hand or two in making things difficult. Far Cry Primal is set to launch next February for PS4 and Xbox One, with a PC version following a month later. Coming even sooner than that is, of course, StarCraft 2 Legacy of the Void, set to complete the StarCraft 2 trilogy when it launches next month. If you can't possibly wait that long, it's okay. The playable prologue, StarCraft 2 Whispers of Oblivion, is out right now and it is absolutely free. The new download includes 3 brand new missions and introduces some of the new stuff that we'll see in Legacy of the Void when it launches November 10. You can play the all-new content right now, even if you don't own any other StarCraft game, and if you like what you see, make sure you pre-order the upcoming expansion. And speaking of which, BlizzCon, the celebration of all things Blizzard, kicks off on November 6th, but if you're not able to get to Anaheim to watch all the action in person, there is a new way to check things out from home. Live streaming on your Xbox One. To watch the entire 2-day event, you will need a virtual ticket, but there will be a selection of free content streaming via the website as well as consoles. And before you get too excited about a potential console tie-in, we are told that the partnership is actually between Blizzard and Windows 10, not Xbox. We're not ruling anything out though, of course. Both companies are pretty good at keeping secrets and dropping bombshells. Whatever happens, we are expecting more about World of Warcraft, StarCraft 2, Hearthstone, Heroes of the Storm and Overwatch, and our fingers are firmly crossed for something Diablo-ish too. To esports now, and European team Virtus Pro have been named the inaugural winners of Australia's Crown CS GO Invitational, taking home the lion's share of a $55,000 prize pool. It was one of the largest esports events in the country, held at Melbourne's Crown Casino and broadcast live on Fox Sports. Local guys, Team Immunity, came second in the finals, and we will have more about the event on next week's show. Overseas, and the United States has crashed out of the League of Legends World Championships in the first round, with all 3 teams crumbling in the group stages. The World Final will be held on October 31st in Berlin's Mercedes-Benz Arena, where the world champion team stands to win $1 million. And speaking of League, Riot Games has banned third-party key reseller G2A from sponsoring any League of Legends teams, following the company's refusal to remove account selling and boosting from its website. G2A, understandably, is a bit annoyed by this decision, which it claims is heavy-handed and unfair. In quick news, if there is an iOS game you are particularly fond of, don't delete it from your phone even temporarily, or you might not get it back. A number of publishers, including Capcom, EA, Sega and 2K, are removing games from the App Store, so you may not be able to re-download your favourites. There are a number of reasons for this. Some games are being upgraded to work with iOS 9 and will be returned in due course, but others, like Australian-developed classics Flight Control and Real Racing, are being retired completely to make way for new and exciting titles. As long as the game is on your phone, you should be okay, even if it doesn't work quite right after you upgrade to iOS 9, but if you have already removed it from your device, you are taking your life into your own hands. And this week's movie news comes from a slightly different place than where we're used to. Veteran video game actor Nolan North has come out to say that fans simply do not want an Uncharted movie, no matter what Sony and the film companies might say, and no matter who steps into the role of Nathan Drake. He believes that gamers have so much emotional investment with Nathan Drake that they would find it very difficult to accept somebody else in the role. And before you ask, no, he's not even suggesting that he take on the top job, because gamers wouldn't accept his face, even though he is the authentic voice of the character in the games. If things keep going the way they have so far, North might not really have much to worry about. The Uncharted movie has been in development hell for more than half a decade, losing actors, directors, and writers. It is currently scheduled for a 2017 release, but we're not holding our breath. For more information on any of these stories, or to keep up to date with the latest gaming news, head to playerattack.com. But for now, stick around, got plenty more still to come.
I'm Jonny Robot here at E3, and we are checking out Cuphead. What is Cuphead? It's awesome. That's pretty much Cuphead in a nutshell, but you guys tell me what it is.
Cuphead is a love letter to the 1930 cartoon era, and at the same time, our love of games that we grew up with. 16-bit era hard games.
It's very much set up like in the same way of any of the classic Contras, Metal Slugs, things like that. Of course, we put our little touches from any other games we love. Like Street Fighter 3 has a little bit of inspiration, Radiant Silvergun has a little bit of inspiration. There's like nuances in every fight, in the design, in the way the game plays, from all things cartoon and video game.
So we can expect brutal difficulty and twitch reflexes to succeed here?
100%. We've tweaked a lot of stuff so it requires players to respond instead of memorize. So there's just a subtle amount of randomization, so you're not always playing the exact same thing that should keep most people on their feet. And we keep the difficulty extreme.
The difficulty is really hard. We bought one at a New Game Plus level, and as well we brought a Forza that we have rotating by our booth. It's just behind us, and anybody who could beat the B, which never happened, actually would win the car, and that was all cleared. So it was pretty good to go.
Never happened though.
So I've seen that, the Cupheads, they can jump and shoot. There's a plane segment as well, so everything's happening, right?
Yes, we have the jump and shoot and the regular run and gun with the extra ideas that we've added in, like super moves, there's special weapons, a dash, a parry move, and there are also other levels in the game that play like a classic shmup. So we have heavily influenced by Thunder Force series. What else? R-Type, Hellfire on Sega Genesis. UN Squadron, exactly.
Oh, and obviously the visuals as well, like you said, 1930s love letter. Yes. What really inspired you to go down that route?
We both watched a ton of cartoons growing up. Every time this guy was sick, he would force me to watch. Yeah.
We would cuddle in just tightly, and then he would put a nice Betty Boop on, and then I would just fall asleep. Yes. It was romantic times for us.
Yes, definitely.
That's some serious brotherly love. Yeah. What can we expect going into it? Are there unlockables as you go along, or is it just what you see is what you get and you better get damn good at it?
There will be unlockable weapons and supers. There's going to be hidden bosses and a bunch of other stuff that we're not going to name so people can be surprised when they find it.
Yeah, like right now the current build, there's a lot of stuff missing from the map to give it life, so there are NPCs and other things to interact with as you sort of manage your way around the islands and unlock more and more and more until, of course, the end of the game.
One of the things we haven't mentioned, it has a very, by the looks of it, heavy multiplayer focus can be a good thing too.
Oh yes, just like the classic run and guns, it's a two-player game. We're going to launch with local co-op, and then after launch we'll look into online if it's possible. We're a small team, so we're not going to make huge promises.
Is it one of those games where you have more players and difficulty just ramps?
The difficulty ramps just by nature, by being in each other's way, by having twice the amount of things on screen to work with. But the boss's health also increases, so it won't go twice as fast because you got two players. And this isn't finalized, but we're working on a feature which will really promote 2 players, which when you're brothers, it's sort of something you always did as kids. So we're going to have, when you die, you'll be able to parry the other player back to life if his ghost doesn't go off the screen. And of course, if your brother's a prick, if he lets the ghost go off the screen and he has an extra health, you can still steal it.
That is just some cruel sibling tactics right there. So we covered 1930s inspiration, but the cup on legs.
Yes.
What is up with that?
The cup just came from doing a ton of character designs and trying to find something that looked like it was from the era, but still it's 100% original. So it's just page after page of doing a ton of character designs, and we finally came to a point of something that we loved. And at the same time, he was scared of coffee cups and mugs when we grew up, so that inspired me to do a couple sketches in that vein, and it just happened to work out.
Phobias, everybody's got them.
Bees and cups, so yeah. And you said like the brutal difficulty as well. Are there any penalties for dying in this other than just losing a life? Or is it infinite continues until you just get good at the game?
We're putting a lot of modern features in the game, so there'll be infinite lives, which allows us to make the game very challenging because you have as many tries as you want, and your progression is saved as you play, so you never have to play the entire game again. You just go around and make progression as you can.
I'm Jonny Robot here at E3, and I'm hanging out with Simon from the Creative Assembly, and we're looking at Total War Warhammer.
Almighty Sigma, savior of the Empire, give me strength. For though I dedicated my life to eradicating it, it feeds, it grows, devouring all.
This is something crazy different for you guys.
Yeah, this is a kind of whole new kind of world for us, really. I mean, it is literally a whole new world, but, you know, we are very traditionally a historical studio, and, you know, we always loved our history side and things like that, but, like, now we've got Warhammer as a franchise, and it's something that I think us as a studio, I'm sure a lot of people have really wanted us to do for a long, long time, to bring the Warhammer world to life in a Total War engine.
Having this like fantasy feeling now, what does that actually allow you to do that you couldn't do before?
It allows us to do so much. I mean, like, the Warhammer lore is so exhaustive, and there's so many mechanics. I mean, they make games, right? You know, they make the tabletop war games, so they've really gone for variety and kind of scope and breadth, and we're able to take that and bring that into kind of the Total War franchise. So you're going to see things like flying units, giants, you're going to see kind of vampires, you're going to see dwarves, like all sorts of crazy stuff coming out in these battles, as well as magic, which I'm sure you'll agree was quite visually opulent.
Let's talk about those new mechanics. You've got magic, you've got flying units. That's going to change the battlefield.
It's totally going to change the battlefield, but at the same time, we're still making a Total War game, right? It's going to be balanced. It's going to feel like a kind of part of the gameplay. So as you saw, like the magic, for example, it's a really kind of big thing for us in the Warhammer tabletop game as well, right? You've got your spellcasters who are able to kind of move around the battlefield, casting spells from their lores. But then you've got the idea of the winds of magic, which are kind of moving across the battlefield and kind of can either limit or kind of help the spells that you're wishing to cast at the time. So even though they're really powerful and can wipe out quite a lot of men in a single fire, right? But actually at the same time, it's got to be strategically used in order to kind of be useful, right? Otherwise you're using all your magic on a single spell, which you could have used maybe some more buff or debuff spells, right? So that's really interesting. But then, as you say, you've got flying units as well, right? And this is new. This is like one of my favorite bits, is like we've added almost like a second layer to the battlefield, right? No longer are you kind of bound to the ground, as it were. You have these units which are actually able to kind of fly up high on the battlefield and kind of strike at kind of pinpoint targets, right? So say there's like a squishy wizard at the back of your kind of lines, right? He's kind of vulnerable, he's open. That's the time when you just fly your wyvern in there. So that wyvern's going to be dealing a lot of damage to those weaker units. But as soon as they start getting caught by the melee units, your strong front line, like once they're on the ground, they're vulnerable and can get taken out quite easily. So once again, it's all about the kind of strengths and weaknesses of like the various units that you're fighting against.
That spider tank unit was insane.
So that's the Arachnarok, right? This is one of those units that we've really been able to, like, all our units, like, lift from the tabletop game. It's fantastic. I mean, I don't know if you saw, but actually there are goblins. Like, there's like 8 goblin archers on top of it on this little platform, and they're firing, right? This is another thing that we've never done before. We have kind of these war machine style units. So you saw the steam tank as well, for example, with its rotating turret. Like, you've got lots of these units which are now kind of bigger and better and cooler than anything that we've ever done in previous Total War games.
And like you said, it's still very much a Total War game. The expanse is just insanely epic.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's kind of the fantasy, isn't it, really? Like, through a fantasy genre, we can bring in so much more kind of visual cues and visual diversity to what we're doing, and as well as just kind of purely the art side of it. And our artists have had a great time, right? Like, they're getting to do giants and things like that. But now, our animators and the animations that we're using, we've really tried to bring a lot of character to each of the battlefields. So you saw, like, for example, the Arachnarok, your favourite, right? Like, you saw it was like spearing a guy on the ground and like eating him and then spitting out his shield at the end, right? It's like, this is really, really exciting, and we really want you to feel kind of part of this epic experience. And that's not just the units that you're seeing on the battlefield, it's also the environments as well, right? Like, so the battle you saw there was a quest battle called Blackfire Pass. The Blackfire Pass, we went for this idea of real verticality with it, right? You saw these huge cliff walls kind of going around either side, and like rivers of lava kind of flowing down there. Like, there was so much going on, and we've really tried to kind of take you away from kind of the real world and into this really, really amazing fantasy world that we're trying to bring to life.
Now, quests, you're a big guy on these things. Let's talk about those.
I love the quest battles, man. They're one of my favorite new features. So basically, one of the things we're doing, as I was saying, we're doing the storytelling side of it. It's all about character. So your faction lords, so people like Karl Franz, who you saw in the battle, like, they will get quest chains that they must undertake, right? Now, you can choose not to, but it's good if you do take them on, because I think they're great. But basically, it's our way of telling the story of these characters. So we tell Karl Franz's story through the campaign map, through missions that you're completing. Now, each one of these quest chains ends in a major quest battle, which is the Blackfire Pass here. And when you complete that quest battle, you will unlock a magic item. This one, for example, is for Galmaraz, the Warhammer. Like, you know, the whole game is named after this Warhammer, so we really wanted to do this as our kind of first showing of what it is. But it's a really good way for us to kind of tell the story and just bring a kind of slightly new feature to the battles, because you're finding a preset army, right? The orcs are kind of, they will be the same army when you're fighting them, but you bring your army from the campaign map, right? So similar to like the historical battles, but you choose what you're bringing into that battle, right? Rather than having to have a preset force. So that's going to be a really interesting thing for players to experiment with. Like, you know, when I'm faced with an army that has a certain unit type or certain unit types in heavy numbers, like maybe it's an army full of flying units or something like that, how do I deal with that? As a player, what units would I need to bring to kind of defeat that army? We think it brings a kind of really interesting kind of, you got to prepare for it and get ready to fight it, and then you can deal with it at your own discretion.
And when can we expect this to hit our rigs?
So basically, it's going to be coming out on PC, Mac and Linux sometime in 2016.
Fantastic. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Paper is everywhere. Printed paper, scrap paper, coloured paper, wrapping paper, newspaper, toilet paper, paper monsters and paper heroes. This is Tearaway Unfolded, where paper is the all-empowered deity. If you didn't get a chance to try out Tearaway on the PlayStation Vita, now's your chance. Media Molecule has brought it to the PS4, utilising the attributes of the DualShock controller in the sort of way we've not seen before. To recap, you play as you. The you. You are a demigod of sorts, an empowering first person in control of much of the surroundings of the game with the power of the controller. You have an offsider, a choice of two, actually, Iota the boy or Atoi the girl, each one made of paper and customised as a parcel with postage stamps. Your offsider is a messenger with a very important message for the hole in the sky, a portal into the real world. It's almost like a buddy movie as you team up with your cardboard companion, and your cardboard companion is also assisted by other assorted paper helpers. Tearaway Unfolded is set in an imaginative cut and paste and fold world where all is power. The storyline weaves its way through fragments of Old English folklore and original creations alike, balancing on the fine line that exists between a child's play narrative and more grown-up stories of boogeymen in corners of dark attics and scarecrows without heads. Having said that, these darker stages are without any real nasty sequences, so as long as you remind yourself that it's just a game, you should be okay to carry on. With the aid of the DualShock 4 controller, you and your companion come across a number of challenges and tasks along the way. This is where the innovations of the controller shine. This game would not be possible on a home console without the DualShock 4 controller. It's a handheld technological marvel. It lets you create gusts of wind that blow across the landscape. It lets you light a torch to see in the dark. It lets you pat a purring squirrel in your palm, and of course, lets you cut and paste the in-game world, creating photos and screenshots that can then be swapped and shared, again, with the controller. It's not quite the same experience as playing the game on Vita. That was a much more personal, intimate experience where you could literally poke holes in the world with a fingertip, but rather than simply trying to squish a Vita-shaped experience into a PS4-shaped hole, the developers have put some thought and effort into making Tearaway Unfolded just as unique as its predecessor. Using all elements of the DualShock 4, touchpads, analog sticks, control pads, and even the gyroscopes, you can control almost all elements of the game, helping your companion to roll, jump, light, throw, and run. The gameplay itself is versatile yet dimensional, with clear, concise menus and tutorials set up to make it easy to understand without feeling patronising. All age groups should be able to get into this one pretty easily. But that's the question. What is Tearaway Unfolded trying to be? A clever, innovative, creative experience for children? The cut and paste exercises are great fun, the graphics are clear and bright, and the tone is friendly, but some part of it are too scary and complex for kids. So is it a unique, nostalgic experiment for grown-ups? That complexity makes things challenging, it leads to a new way of appreciating the PS4 and its controller, and it provides a pleasant change of pace from so many same old games on the market. But is it too simplistic? We're not sure. We think it's both. Maybe not one for kids without their parents, but playing this one with your kids will add a whole nother layer for both of you. Tearaway Unfolded is, if you'll excuse us, a cut above many less dimensional games. Trust us, no paper cuts with this one. And that's about it for this edition of Player Attack. Thanks for watching. Next week, we look at two very different versions of the future as Jonny catches up with Dice to chat Mirror's Edge Catalyst, and we get friendly with Turing, the world's first sapient robot in read-only memories. In the meantime, you can catch us on playerattack.com. We are on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, and if you've got something you want to say, send us an email, mailbox@playerattack.com, or just hop on our forums. Till next week, I'm Jessica Citizen, and this is Player Attack.